Thank you for joining Clash of Cultures again as we continue our tour previewing college football teams. Our stop today is in Tennessee. But before we get to the football, I just want to say again, if you're watching this video, please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. We've been doing so good with these videos. We appreciate all the love and support, and we would appreciate your love and support. That way you can see all of these videos. Give us your comments. The comment section has been banging, so we appreciate that truly. But with that being said, like I said, we're going to talk about Tennessee today. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts on Tennessee?
So I'm going to start this video off kind of unconventionally, not traditionally.
Okay.
I'm going to apologize to Alabama fans, to
Okay.
Georgia fans right now, and to all of the SEC right now,
Okay.
other than Tennessee. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Tennessee this year. And I think we did our Georgia video, we did our Alabama video. Tennessee is not my favorite to win the SEC, but I did say I think there are three teams who I could realistically see winning the SEC, and that is Georgia, Alabama, and now Tennessee, who we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. Now, this take is going to be hotter than the skillet. Joe Milton may win the damn Heisman this year. And listen. Before
I'm a Joe Milton fan, but
before you guys hit the dislike button and make ugly faces on your screen right now, hear me out. You're talking about a guy who is super talented arm-wise. Mm-hmm. He's in an offense with Josh Heupel, who's going to let him throw the ball. It's not going to be like Jalen Milroe or Cade Klubnik or DJ Uiagalelei, who they're not letting him throw the ball. They're going to let him sling the damn rock. And I think when you're bringing back Jabari Small, 700 yards, 13 touchdowns. Jalen Wright, 900 yards, 10 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson, 400 yards, 6 touchdowns. Those are all running backs. So when you have that threat in the backfield, they're not just going to be like they were last year where they're throwing it to Jalen Hyatt all over the field, but you have legitimate threats at the running back position. They can't just key in on Milton. And I truly think Heupel is going to let him loose, and he has Brew McCoy at wide receiver, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ramel Keaton, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. And Squirrel White, 400 yards in his freshman year. They did lose 2 offensive linemen in Jerome Carvin and Darnell Wright, but I still think this team has recruited really well the last 2 years. I think Josh Heupel is a top 5 to 10 coach in college football. He put up great. He beat Alabama, put up a great fight against Georgia. I know they lost like 2 touchdowns late. But I fully expect Joe Milton to replicate what Hendon Hooker did last year. I expect him to be in Heisman conversations. I expect him to have Tennessee in the conference title or in a conference championship contention. Let me rephrase that. And I expect him to be in playoff contention. A lot of people think Tennessee is just going to fall off the map because they lost Hyatt and Hooker. I don't think that's the case. We saw a glimpse of what Milton can do against my Clemson Tigers. Absolutely shredded us. 19 for 28, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Looked perfect against, let me remind you, a top 5, top 10 defense in college football last year. Yes, Clemson's offense wasn't good, but their defense has been their defense the last 10 years. And he made them look like high school kids. So, I mean, the way he was throwing the ball against that defense, he's only going to play really a couple of hard defenses a year in Alabama and Georgia. So I think barring them losing both of those games, and if he looks good throughout the season, I could see him in New York at the Heisman ceremony. Like I said, I fully anticipate Tennessee making a run for the playoffs. Now, again, in the comments, you might think I'm crazy, but just wait. Save this video and come back because I'm telling you now, you heard it first. Milton is going to have a great season, and he's going to prove a lot of doubters wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna not only call that, I'm gonna double down.
Okay.
I mean, if you watch the Georgia video, if you watch the Alabama video, you said I've said that I think both of them are going to be in relatively down, right? I think both of them are going to be down. I think Tennessee's in the playoffs. I think Tennessee's going to win the SEC. I think Joe Milton is legit. He was legit at Michigan before he came over to Tennessee. This is a guy threw 10 touchdowns last year, no interceptions, in a perfect tailor-made. Now we talked about Heupel, right? In a tailor-made offense for a quarterback. This is a guy that just released a video, I think, a couple of days ago, throwing the ball 80 yards effortlessly. And the concern being, right, Tillman and Hyatt. Well, remember, Tillman was out most of the season. Yes, you lost Hyatt, who was the Blitnikoff winner. But like you said, Brew McCoy is legit.
And wait, not to cut you off really quick. Yes, they lost Hyatt, But again, like we said in a video before, I forget what video we're talking about. Hyatt was not a known commodity coming into the season last year.
Yeah,
So
no
let's not
facts.
act like he just lost Devontae Smith or something crazy. But continue.
And I think Tennessee has been building for this. Like Steven said, I think Josh Heupel is one of the best young coaches in college football. I think that man is serious. I think he's a great offensive mind. And I think this offense is tailor made for this year. This year is going to be the year. When you return what they return, like I said, excluding Jalen Hyatt, which is really to me the only key player. And I'm not knocking
Darnell
Hendon
Wright.
Hooker, but
Darnell
Hendon Hooker
Wright.
was hurt.
They lost Darnell Wright as well, the offensive lineman. He was the
But
first round pick.
well, yeah, at skill position, right? I think Joe Milton can step in. He's going to have a bevy of weapons at his disposal, to include the ability to turn around and hand the ball off to a plethora of top quality running backs. I think this Tennessee team is dangerous. Like I said, I think they run through the SEC. I think they end up in the playoffs. And because I'm an Ohio State fan, I can't say that they're going to win the national championship because I can only pick one team to win the national championship. But I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if this Tennessee team was able to pull it off and win it all. I think people who have not seen Joe Milton since his Michigan days are in for a pleasant surprise, because I think this dude is about to be it. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman, but I think he's going to be in New York. And I think Steven said the same thing about Jordan Travis in Florida State. I think Joe Milton is going to be in New York.
Now, I did say they lost Darnell Wright. They did bring over Andre Karich, or I'm not sure you pronounce his name, from Texas. They also grabbed John Campbell out of the transfer portal from the starting offensive tackle from Miami. So they did replace Darnell Wright, who was a first-round pick, with another starting caliber tackle out of Miami, Power 5 guy. So he's not a bum. Right. Now, he may not be as good as Darnell Wright, but they're not replacing him with an inexperienced player, for that matter. I think what kind of is holding me back as saying Tennessee is my favorites, though, is yes, I expect their offense to be explosive, but their defense was terrible last year. They had their pass defense was ranked number 127 out of 131 eligible teams. Now, if that doesn't get better, you're not winning the SEC. So let's go ahead and make that known now. Yes, they have a great offense, but I think if they are able to, I'm not saying have a top 10 defense, but at least be a respectable defense, I think they'll be in contention. Now, let me pull up their schedule.
So the one thing I got to say is that they're bringing back a good majority of that defense. Now, again, while maybe that defense wasn't great, I think the fact that you are returning players, and I think something like 7 of 11 starters from last year are returning, the fact that you're returning that many players to the defense means that they're going to be better. I'm not going to say that this is the Georgia defense from 2 years ago, but I think they're going to be better than they were last year.
Yes, and so like I said, I do expect a three-headed monster, if you will, in the SEC with Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. I would still probably favor Georgia over Tennessee, but it's very close. To me, you're splitting hairs. It's very close. But I think my final prediction for Tennessee, I have them either going 11-1 or 10-2 in the regular season. I think both the Alabama and the Georgia game are going to be very, very tough. Obviously, you're playing in Tennessee against Georgia, so you're a home game, but you have to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium and play at Alabama, and that's always a tough environment. Absolutely. And I get that we talked about Alabama and what they lost, but at the end of the day, it's Alabama, one of the best fan bases in the country. I think those two games are going to be the games to circle. I think South Carolina is going to be pretty good this year, but I think it's going to come down to that Georgia game. Obviously, if they lose to Georgia there, Georgia runs the table. I think Tennessee's out. But it's going to come down to those two games. But I would not, like my dad said, I would not be surprised if Tennessee was in the championship or in the championship picture. I would say I would be lying if I said I would not be surprised if they won the championship. I would be surprised just because I'm not used to seeing that. Maybe that's why I'd be surprised.
No, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time, since the Manning days, since they've kind of been at the top of college football, other than last year. But I would be surprised, nonetheless, if they were able to pull it off and beat a Georgia, beat a Alabama, and then beat a Alabama again or LSU in the conference championship game.
Well, is the SEC staying with divisions this year? I know they stayed with the 8-game schedule. I don't know if they made an announcement of if they're going divisions or top 2 teams. And the only reason I say that is because if they are staying in divisions, then this season comes down to one game. Not knocking Alabama's ability to beat them, especially in Bryant-Denny. But again, that would be one loss for Tennessee. This season to them would come down to that Georgia game. And the fortunate part and the reason I feel good for Tennessee is that game is in Neyland Stadium. They played Georgia really hard, as Stephen said, last year, and that game was down in Georgia, in Athens. This game is in Neyland Stadium, and I think in terms of return, what we don't know about Georgia is really what they're going to be. I give all the credit to Kirby Smart and his ability to reload. We saw that last year, but we don't know. We don't know. This Tennessee team, I think, is legit, and I think the fact that they are playing Georgia in Neyland Stadium gives them, to me, a slight advantage. If they win that game, and if, like I said, I don't know the SEC. Did you look it up?
Yeah, I don't think they split. I mean, I don't think they converge yet.
Yeah, so if they're staying in divisions, if they beat Georgia, even if they lose to Alabama, that puts them in the SEC championship against whoever wins the West. And again, you assume if Alabama beat them, then they're playing Alabama now at a neutral site, or Atlanta, for the SEC championship. Again, I feel very good about Tennessee. So I have them 11-1 or 12-0.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have them. I have them in the playoffs, but I think they're going to beat Georgia in Tennessee. And to me, that's what this season comes down to. Can they beat Georgia in Tennessee?
Now, in the comment section, correct us if we are wrong about the whole division thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they converge yet, but hypothetically, if they are still East and West, again, I do agree. I think it comes down to that Georgia-Tennessee game. Even if they were to lose to Alabama, if you beat Georgia, you're still fine. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's a three-headed race, a three-horse race, if you want to say. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of the three teams won. So let's just make that clear before everybody in the comments comes from my head. I would not be surprised if any three teams won, but I will say this. Of the three quarterbacks that are there, Joe Milton is the best quarterback.
I agree.